Never in the history of the world have the merchants of obscenity had available to them the modern facilities for disseminating this filth. Disseminating this filth. The onslaught of the communist masters of deceit.
Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz. Pinko, Commie, Slutz.
Hello.
Hello. Marlo. Hello. Welcome.
Hello.
All the sluts are here.
Slutting it up on Valentine's Day.
Like a bunch of ignorant sluts. It is Valentine's Day, or as I like to remind everybody, it's the 92nd anniversary of the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Everyone should watch Some Like It Hot. That's how I recommend celebrating Valentine's Day.
Also, the 100-something anniversary of Captain Cook dying in Hawaii.
That is true. Captain Cook was stabbed in the neck by Hawaiian natives in 70. I feel like. Oh, God, I had it written down, actually, because I wanted to talk about it purely for the fact that Mike Myers, not fictional murderer Mike Myers, but man who played Austin Powers Mike Myers. Yeah,
recently starred in a Super Bowl commercial. Mike
They
Myers
did bring back Wade and Garth to do it fucking Uber Eats. Oh, God. But
Party time.
Party time. Excellent. A cool thing about Mike Myers, not cool at all, is that his dad was a British guy. Mike Myers being from Canada, his dad was a British guy who wouldn't eat pineapple because he was so angry still about what they did to Captain Cook. And I think this is like top tier worst things I've ever heard someone tell voluntarily about their family, because I'm sorry, if you're still smarting about some colonial revenge more than 100 years later, like, it'd be something if he was like, actually, I'm related to the Cook family and there was a personal thing. No, it was like on principle. He was so upset that they had betrayed Captain Cook. Wouldn't eat pineapple for his whole life.
More for the rest of us.
I mean, he's probably dead because Mike Myers is an old guy now. But Mike Myers' dead dad. Fuck that guy. Also, Mike Myers kind of infamously known to be an asshole and hard to work with.
Love Guru is one of the worst movies.
Yeah. Sarah Silverman tells a really harrowing account of she was very, very, very young when she got on SNL, and she was only there for like a season and a half. But apparently Mike Myers was incredibly mean to her. And yeah.
Well, that was also like, and I mean, I guess it's still like this, but just the days when there were all the cliques in SNL.
It's so funny that Lorne Michaels has been in charge of that show, you know, except for that brief gap, for its almost entirety, and he's got to enjoy like 7 different narratives about himself, and they just keep getting increasingly more like adorable and lovable and like, cutesy in the guise of like making fun of himself, but they're not really.
Well, I feel like every boomer strives to be Forrest Gump, which is to say, been integrally around important and seminal
and that's
things,
Lorne
but
Michaels.
also none of it's your fault. Yeah, I mean, like, Lorne Michaels is now a figure of the counterculture.
Another fun fact is
regardless of how true that is, and it's not
Mike
true.
Myers' Dr. Evil is like partially based on Lorne Michaels. You see, like, there's definitely mannerisms. The pinky thing is for sure, yeah.
Yeah, I knew that at the time because I was actually in, like, junior high to high school. Like, as soon as I was basically allowed to stay up that late, I would watch like every Saturday Night Live every week for years straight. Yeah, I don't still do that, and that's the difference. Like, no, but like, you know, you're in that phase where it's like you want to be a leftist, but all you have is like Orwell and Al Franken books. Yeah, you watch some SNL every week.
I was like,
you know, that's all you got.
Like, I definitely had a TV in my room where nobody came and made me turn it off when I was really young. So I definitely remember being in like second grade and watching SNL sometimes and then wanting to tell somebody else about it at school, but knowing that it was like kind of inappropriate that I watched it. So I'd like make something up that like my parents taped it and let me watch it, which in retrospect is even more inappropriate than me just staying up and watching it as a 7 or 8 year old.
Right.
It's weirder if my adult parents taped Saturday Night Live and then was like, here you go, the next day.
They wanted to join you in hashtag resistance.
Really hyper aware of superficial like political jokes and stuff when I was really young. So I was the only kid in my second grade class who could correctly identify the vice president. And yes, I'm a bit older than you. So that vice president, the only reason I knew who it was is because it was Dan Quayle, and he had just done misspelled potatoes, which was an infamous Dan Quayle incident where he was reading off of a thing at a spelling bee. It had potatoes spelled incorrectly, and he went with what was on the paper instead of, you know, just knowing how to spell potato.
Spell that again now. And add one little bit on the end. Just think of potato. How's it? You're right phonetically. Put it up. There you go.
I grew up being told about that joke, but it was during the early Clinton years
it like this is
that
like
I
the
was
first
told about the
thing
joke.
I remember. Like, so it's around second grade for me, but I definitely knew. Like, I could identify the political figures, but via the jokes that were being made about them more than I was like just super smart or memorizing facts. It was like, oh yeah, I know this joke. Of course, then going into the Clinton years, not knowing really what the joke was, but knowing, like, I remember Monica Lewinsky didn't happen till the late 90s, but I mean, she was alive. Would it be great if they just created her in the late 90s? But earlier on, there was like a ton of other women who were like, Bill Clinton's a fucking creep.
Well, wasn't early on Whitewater?
Whitewater was early on, but before he was even president, there was like Paula Jones, Jennifer Flowers. Like, and I'm saying like,
and those are not easily digestible to what, 10-year-old maybe?
Yeah, like I was just
yeah, I'll say I know more.
Yeah.
Like I was alive for that, but I know more about it from the movie Primary Colors than I do.
We didn't have cable
from it actually
much
happening
later. So, you know, I was just watching network TV. And this is what I was sort of absorbing. But yeah.
I remember very early on, there was some PBS thing where some chef was cooking with Elmo, and he's like, Elmo, could you get some quail eggs? And Elmo said, oh, like the vice president. That's
the
like
only political joke I can remember
my
is
first political
lockbox.
joke I remember. Well, I mean, I would say the first time people my age became generally politically aware also converged with Monica Lewinsky happening.
Yeah.
So I'm saying from my perspective, like that was like the first time anyone talked about it rather than was the Lewinsky scandal.
Aware of stuff earlier than my peers just because I was a fucking dork. But the first thing I remember like my schoolmates like being aware of was like when Bill Clinton ran and he went on Arsenio Hall and he played the saxophone and like people were like, he's cool. Oh, and he went on MTV. Even though I did not have cable, I did not have MTV, I did hear about Bill Clinton going on MTV. Which was like super cool to people, even randos in Baltimore City who really didn't care.
I mean, I remember it being, and no one fucking remembers this now, but okay, where the fuck did McCain announce? Like, didn't McCain announce on late night at one point, or someone announced on late night and it was a big deal and it was like recent?
Though, a side note, Meghan McCain, whoever is doing Meghan McCain's hair on The View or at her house while she like zooms to the view or whatever. It's hilarious. It looks like how I would like my hair done in 1999.
Wait, let me look this up.
It's like Chun-Li buns and like it would look cool on another kind of person. But it looks like whoever's doing her hair maybe doesn't even like her.
My mother's entire political identity is just watching The View. I think and that's
my mom, The View makes her so mad.
Why?
Because they are either not liberal enough for her, or she just focuses on like the one conservative person that they've had on The
Which is
View.
why they have that character. I mean, my mom also focuses on them, but she also like entirely has her identity, in Joy Behar's soul or Whoopi Goldberg's soul. So she's like Patrick Swayze in Ghost.
Yeah.
Which I saw last night.
At least your mom can vote.
Movie theaters. Yeah.
Imagine getting COVID because you had to watch Ghost in the theaters in 2021.
It would 100% be worth it. Also, we were like the only people in the theater.
I haven't been in a movie theater since I saw Cats.
Yeah, I think Uncut Gems was
like
my last
11:30
one.
in the morning.
I went down to Delaware just to go to the movie theater and see Black Judas and the Messiah.
No, the regular
Judas and the Black
nondescript
Messiah.
Judas
I was gonna
and the
fuck
Messiah is black.
Yeah, and
Well, so I guess we can we all watch Judas and the Black Messiah.
and I have it right. We got it. A bunch of white
That's
commies
another review.
a bunch of
episode.
white
Deal
commies
with
are
it.
going to review it.
reviewing a black movie.
Please tune in
Just
to others for a
wait for Red Letter
different
Media's
kind of
one.
review, I guess.
Or don't and appreciate our communists.
I say, me, Bunny, says, maybe read a black reviewer's review of it. Preferably a black socialist, because wouldn't you know, I know like at least 3 black socialist film critics. So, read one of them if you want another dimension. But
Possible links in description.
obviously we're going to be coming at it. Well, we can talk about it as it exists as a film, but also as the dirty commies we are. Now, I know before we saw it, I was worried because somebody had written like that they were capitalist washing, like obfuscating the fact that Fred Hampton.
Wait, what? Capitalist washing? I called it radical washing.
Radical, whatever. So there was some fears.
Non-radical wash? I don't know.
Yeah.
De-radical.
Some fears. First of all, Judas and the Black Messiah is about Fred Hampton. It's about real people. It's about Fred Hampton and Bill O'Neill. They are the titular figures. Fred Hampton was a Black Panther and a Marxist, a communist, all these things. So we were curious about how they treated this because I think one of the themes of this here podcast is discussing the ways there's a ton of anti-communist propaganda just casually in American media. And it's interesting, I think, to look at even a figure who is explicitly Marxist, explicitly an American Marxist as well, and how it's treated. So I guess, did you guys like the movie? First of all, superficial.
I will say I liked the movie, but also that's kind of the last positive thing I'm going to say about it.
Okay, fair.
I was entertained by the movie. I don't know if I liked it. Ariel fell asleep during the middle of it, so
It's very long.
it kind of dragged at parts in the second act. Kind of took a long time to get to the finale, I guess. I mean, it felt like a big Hollywood movie.
It's definitely a movie. It's definitely not a passion project by some Marxists who got some money to make a movie. It's a movie.
And it wasn't a Boots Riley movie either, which we can go
exactly.
into.
This is what I think I watched it sort of on 2 levels. Like, was it entertaining as a film, as a sort of biopic, which I do personally really do like to watch movies about real figures. Like, it's something being.
It wasn't a full biopic.
Well, here's the thing: is this movie is
I have some thoughts on this.
in fact not about Fred Hampton. This movie is about Bill O'Neill, who is the Judas from the title. About like 20 minutes into the film, I was like, oh, duh, this movie's about him, which is Lakeith Stanton's character. It's about the person who essentially gets caught up with the feds to snitch on Fred Hampton and sort of the complicated ways he's drawn into that. I will give the film an A+ for not making any of the cops really at all redeemable.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that.
I was really appreciative of that like they didn't, especially the figure who was in direct contact with Bill O'Neill the most. You could see there was an opportunity to soften up that character or make him more complicated and whatnot, but they made him ugly.
It's fat.
That's
Matt
just
Damon.
how that guy looks.
It's fat Matt Damon.
But they made no efforts
out.
to make him more likable, I think. And his Fed arguments about the Black Panthers being, the same as the Klan, I really liked that they didn't seem to, in the world of the movie, they didn't seem to have any weight. It seemed like bullshit.
Oh, I have a story about that.
I also have some specific thoughts on that.
In the theater, there was a black couple, and when that guy, Jesse Plemons, said, the Klan is the same as the Black Panthers, she yelled out, "Get the fuck out of here."
That rules, too. Oh, man.
This is history.
That was worth it.
Yeah, no, I will drive to Delaware and get COVID to hear that.
It was so great. I'll get back to them later. Oh, should I say it now? Okay, at the end of the movie, I walked by them as we were leaving, and I heard the guy yell at me, and he raised his fist up at me.
Cool,
and
was it just because of your beautiful hair?
Steven, is what you're saying that he gave you a pass, Steven? Is that what you're arguing?
I think I didn't know how to respond. Should I have raised my fist or no? Is that a...
Yeah, I would not.
If anybody raised their fist at me, I always do it
You
back.
always do it back, even after a Black Panther movie.
Absolutely.
I do the closed fist when you see like World War II movies in Germany. They do the kind of lazy Hail Hitler where they just kind of like flop their arm up real quick. I'll do that, but just with a closed fist. Yeah, just a little.
It's like when I was driving through the city and the people are on their bikes doing protest and they got to pass by my car and someone gives me the fist, I give it back and I'm very polite.
I just wanted to crowdsource, what's the right response.
I say if it's invited, I wouldn't initiate it. But I say return, but not too enthusiastic. I think Marlo's got the right idea.
Don't fully extend the elbow.
Yeah, definitely show that you are
a comrade.
Exactly. Which is the other good point I will say about the movie is despite never, to my knowledge, if you clocked it, let me know, never using the word Marxist.
Or Marxist-Leninist.
Or Marxist-Leninist. They did refer to each other as comrade very consistently. So I feel like there was somebody in
there were 10 mentions of Mao. I was trying to count it. There was mentions of Mao. There was mentions of Chinese people. And yeah, they kept hammering home that he was influenced by Mao. They even pointed to people power and said Mao, I think at one point on the black.
Yeah, no, they were legitimately quoting Mao in that scene. Yeah, I mean, my general assessment of the politics, because I did also go into it of how is it as a movie, how is it with the presentation of the politics, and I kind of then morphed that into something else. But as far as the politics is concerned, I'll say they were as explicit as they could be without ever saying the word Marx or Lenin.
Which is in itself a repressive move.
Sure.
That is.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
You can be as dog whistly and signaling as possible, but like saying the words is still, appropriate given that you say the name of the party, you say chairman and mentioned Mao
Yes,
a
they
bunch of
did.
times. At the very least, it's intellectually dishonest not to mention Marx or
I agree.
Marxist-Leninist.
I agree,
But
but also I kind of developed another criticism that sort of overtook that, which is they didn't really explain the politics at all.
Yeah.
And you had a continual like trope of the Black Panthers shooting at police and not explaining why.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You know what? I guess as
Like,
I'm
are the
watching
Black
it,
Panthers
I'm
the good guys
I'm
in this?
thinking, this is the thing. I'm thinking about what I already know about the Black Panthers when I'm watching it. I wasn't thinking of somebody coming in just watching it as a movie and how that presents. Yeah, that's interesting.
And I think that
actually,
feeds
because-
into the Marxist-Leninist repression.
To jump off Bunny's assessment of
promising young woman.
Yeah, so to jump off that, it seems to be trying to undermine a sort of movie that isn't enough of a trope to warrant being undermined.
Interesting. Okay.
Like,
yeah.
you can just do a biopic of Fred Hampton. You don't need to do a biopic of the person who killed Fred Hampton.
I felt that was the cop out because I don't
Literally
even think
the
they
cop
honored,
out.
Yeah. I don't think they even honored the potential, like from a total film perspective. I don't think they even honored the potential of exploring Bill O'Neill's character and the complexities there. They just chose him as a center point so they didn't have to totally focus on Fred Hampton. So it could be this middling perspective that wasn't totally committed to pushing Fred's story.
Yes.
They got to kind of play this tertiary perspective of like, we're watching this happen through this Judas character.
I have lots of thoughts on this.
And like, also I wanted to mention these people in real life were 18 and 21 years old. They were little tiny adults. They were children adults. So having like 29 and 30-year-olds play them in a movie also
made it seem more mature than they were.
It makes the cruelty of what the government is responsible
More justified.
for less. Yeah, it doesn't seem, it doesn't seem as egregious as it really was. So I think there's still an opportunity out there for somebody someday to tell Fred Hampton's story on film in a more 3D way.
I have a couple thoughts on the perspective of the film and the use of Lakeith Stanfield as the main character and driving narrative, because we follow him as like this objective narrator to Fred Hampton's story. And it combines two films in a almost, I don't want to say dialectical way, but in an interesting way. It combines Sorry to Bother You and Black Klansman in that it's literally Lakeith Stanfield playing the same character, because in Sorry to Bother You, his role was to be the scab that worked its way into the corporation to find out the evil behind the corporation. And this is the same story, is that Lakeith Stanfield, he's arm wrestled into this role of like being the scab, working his way into the organization, you know, playing this part which is divorced from his true self. And then he's supposed to uncover the horrors of the organization of the Black Panther in this case, which is kind of the reversal of Sorry to Bother You. And Black Klansman is pretty much almost the same story as this one, except I feel like this was supposed to be a more authentic take on the politics than Black Klansman, because it was a cop who falls in love with a woman inside of the radical organization. Was it Black Panther and Black Klansman? I don't think it was ever explicit, but he infiltrated the group, earned their trust, and like fell in love with a woman inside of it, and then kind of started having this tension of sympathizing with the radicals and his role as a cop. And that was sort of how Bill O'Neill was played out here, but with the objective narrator telling you he ends up being the bad guy in the end. but while you're in the movie, he feels like the protagonist that you're supposed to sympathize with. And I find that to be, as you said, the cop-out. We can't tell you how radical or how justified the cops were in their actions, so we need to follow this character who is going to gloss over some of the more radical elements of the group in order to tell a story that is not the story of Fred Hampton.
Yeah, but also as an outsider who is being sent as an interloper into this place, he's not asking the questions that would extrapolate what the views are because he's pretending, you know? So they get to avoid being explicit about certain things because of the way they've set it up just so. I was glad that it wasn't like a total wash.
Like the cops are good guys.
Everything. But like I said, I've been paying attention to my friends who are film critics and et cetera. And I know at least two who are Black socialists who saw this movie, and I read the reviews of it. And basically, it's like, as a film, it works, you know? Yeah, like it drags a little in the middle. I wish they wouldn't have montaged the sort of outreach to the other groups.
Yeah, and that was kind of weird, too. The Rainbow Coalition whole buildup was like, oh, here's some Confederate flag people.
Yeah, they don't explain any of that.
And they could have. They could have easily explained. Marla,
really
what did you think? I think you were gone. What do you think of this being like a synthesis of Sorry to Bother You and Black Klansman? Because
I've never seen Black Klansman, but I think I see what you're talking about.
Because the Bill O'Reilly character is the same character that he played in Sorry to Bother You. And he was a scab. He infiltrated the corporation in that case, and worked his way up. And then, you know, in this movie, he acts the same way. Like he gets his arm twisted by the cops to infiltrate, which is similar to the way it happened in Sorry to Bother You. And then he worked his way in only to find out the horrors of the organization. In Sorry to Bother You, it was the corporation, but here it's the Black Panther, but he's actually figuring out the horrors of the FBI as he does it. And so he's playing the same character, but in Black Klansman, it's the same story where like a black cop infiltrates a radical black organization, and then he has this like sentimentality and push and pull as to whether or not he sympathizes with their radicalism versus his, you know, cop affiliation.
So my thoughts on the Sorry to Bother You comparison, because I had a few, because in many ways, like Sorry to Bother You also notably I don't think ever uses the word socialism.
No.
Let alone Marxism, Lenin, any of that.
I think there it works because it's approaching the subject from a different, like, film angle.
But, like, it says its side through the ideology. It makes the argument for the ideology of unionizing workers over selling slaves, and it's not afraid to do that, as saying, like...
it explains that, too.
Well, okay, here's the thing. It connects the goddamn violence to the fucking, like, why they're doing it. Like, and that's the thing that, like, kept annoying me about this, is there was just this, like, disconnected violence, this fairly accurate dialectical synthesis speeches of, you know, the plight of the black man in modern America. No connection between the two, no thing of what they're trying to, like, achieve with the violence or why the violence is happening, what their goals really are. And then, like, the only way it tells you Fred Hampton is a good guy, the only way it, like, quote-unquote humanizes him is it has him knock up a chick at some point. Like, it doesn't, like, really say, like, what a great guy he is. It just is like, oh, he's capable of feeling love. That's nice.
Which is similar to Black Klansman, which is sort of my point, that they don't ever explain the rationality behind the radicalization. They don't explain the rationality behind the communists.
Well, yeah, they don't really explore Fred's
The most we get
story,
is when I was a little kid, Emmett Till was killed and I was sad. Like,
or Malcolm
great.
X and Martin Luther King were killed. Are you sad about that?
Yeah, and he's listening to the speeches.
But it is very much like it's a cop drama, and like they try and act like they're trying to plug the Black Panthers as the good guys, but I don't think they ever actually do.
They definitely like hold back, and they definitely.
The lady in the theater definitely thought they were the good guys.
Yeah, and I can read that from it. They are the good guys.
We all know they are the good guys.
I know what was going on. They were the good guys.
But what they did is they did this
bait and switch.
They did this thing where they didn't soften the cops too much. You still could be like, ew, all these cops are fucking gross, blah, blah, blah. But they did leave
the Black Panther seems to just shoot people randomly.
They did leave it hanging in the air, especially the implication that the Black Panthers had tortured a snitch.
Well, they did.
Right?
Okay, they did set that up, and they did explicitly say, no, it wasn't it was literally this cop in the Black Panthers did that so we could blame the Black Panthers for that. Like they were very, I will give them credit on that.
What I think you're getting at is that they dehumanize the Black Panthers to be this monolithic group that's neutered of its politics.
The irony is one of the best lines in it, which was Todd from Breaking Bad saying like, oh yeah, the Klan and the Black Panthers are two sides of the same coin, which I feel is a very explicit, like, you know, obviously this is wrong idea of both sidesism. And I thought it was refreshing, but when you look at the movie, literally the structure of the movie is we have our protagonist and there's two sides of this coin of the cops and the Black Panthers that are literally two sides of his world, and that's how we view them as an inherent binary. Without,
I feel like us watching it, this is what we're seeing, but I feel like it was crafted in a way where a person who is averse to communism, who wants to pretend like the Black Panthers weren't a Marxist-Leninist organization, it leaves it open for those people to ignore the signs and walk away with a story that lets them divorce this true story from those politics if they choose to.
Well,
in their own mind.
They did say
like,
socialism a number of times, and that I think was a giveaway. They also said communism once. Do you know who said it though?
Hoover.
J. Edgar Hoover.
Who was Martin Sheen. And I'm watching the movie, and then there's this one scene with J. Edgar Hoover where it's close up on him, and I'm looking at his face, and I'm watching it, and my boyfriend's in next to me, and I'm like, oh my god, is that Martin Sheen? Like, it took me out of the movie entirely for a moment because it is really kind of horrible makeup.
He looked like the Penguin.
Like, he looked like he looks like
Danny
Penguin.
DeVito's Penguin.
He looked like his last name is Cobblepot.
He looked like a guild navigator from David Lynch's Dune.
J. Edgar Cobblepot. I've been watching the Harley Quinn cartoon, guys. It's very good.
Say that, and I still never watched it.
I just started watching it today. It's really good. But it's also like made specifically for me, the person who was super into DC Comics in the 90s as a kid, but also specifically into the female characters in the Batman universe.
Word.
But it's a comedy and it's very funny. So anyway, side note, highly recommend Harley Quinn. It's on HBO Max, guys. Anyway.
I think what we're getting at is there are a lot of tricks. There are a lot of tricks to make you think that this is a socialist movie, but not a communist movie, or not about communists.
Yes, where people can have that thing that people say, right? Where they're like, I just mean this thing and not communist. Which, like, even if I didn't mean it for real, it would inspire me, the person, to say, yeah, well, I am fucking communist.
Which is
even if I wasn't.
Which is the Boots Riley meme when what's her name from Democracy Now goes, so you're an anti-capitalist, and Boots Riley goes, communist.
I don't know how you guys feel, but I think I had the most time as a shit lib in my life, personally. So like, I remember having these same kinds of thoughts or sort of perimeters around what I believed, right? Because I had consumed a lot of anti-communist propaganda, which we all have if you've grown up in the United States. And it's interesting to reflect, to think about me 7 years ago and how I was open to making distinctions like, yeah, like democratic socialism is cool, but like I'm not a communist, right?
Which is a common thing in the DSA.
Yeah, but then coming to a place where I'm like, oh, well, communism is the ultimate goal, right? And even if I'm open to hearing arguments about practically this and that is blah, 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 theoretically, I've come to a place where I'm like, yeah, communism is the ultimate goal. But I also admit that me personally, there's a little bit of provocation that I enjoy in that, which was exactly the thing I was trying to avoid in my previous life, right? And I see it, like, there's still people I am close to who they're not on the same political journey as me. And like, because I'm in entertainment. Like, I have a ton of friends who are liberals who work in entertainment. And it really is funny because the ones who are gainfully employed, who are TV writers, who blah, 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 they are so much more, you know, the libby liberals, right? Just in recent years, especially like in comedy, I've definitely gotten to know a lot more overt leftists and leftist comedians and things like that. But that's like a super new thing.
Well, it wasn't in the an alternative to be that. It wasn't an option, or it wasn't acceptable in some social way unless you were in Vermont.
Or like, you know, I had disparaging views about like fucking crust punks with whatever over here. Why do they got a dog? Like shit like that. Like where I'm just relating like a specific person I saw who I thought was a fucking dipshit to whatever. And like that is often what a lot of people are doing. And that is also why I understand the choices made in a movie like this. Because here's the thing. This fucking Gina, whatever her name, got canceled from Star Wars fucking this week. Hollywood's very conservative. Like it's not a super even progressive, quote unquote, whatever that means, place. It's very conservative in the fact that absolutely as soon as you threaten a bottom line money wise, like you're out of here, bitch. Like so it's not confusing that way. It's not fair in any other way. But if you're talking about whether somebody is hurting or helping the bottom line of the corporation, yeah, that's a pretty reliable thing about whether somebody's getting fired or promoted. So that's what I think is kind of funny when there is that sort of old school liberal Hollywood idea. It's actually super not.
Well,
like I mean, also, individual actors,
liberalism is extremely like conservative. It is.
Well, yes, but I understand that, yeah, this was probably the best they could do.
It felt like,
you know,
the writer had written a whole shit ton about Marxist-Leninism, and some editor came in and just chopped it to bits.
Yeah, I could see that.
I mean, I'd be curious
if there's a director's cut. It just felt like they squeezed in a couple proletariats at the end. They squeezed in some sermonizing about the working class and about...
I would say some of his speeches were quite good and could be a part of a movie like Sorry to Bother You that never mentions socialism by name but has speeches like that. But they weren't ever brought into connection with the movie as a whole. So they were just isolated sermons, as you said.
And I felt like they were very careful to... all of those moments were like lifted directly. Like those are all literal like quotes of Fred Hampton's. Yeah. They didn't dare editorialize too much in the things that were overtly political in those ways.
But he wasn't ever... I don't know. It seemed like it almost had a strained relationship with Fred Hampton.
Right. No, I'll agree with that. That's definitely something.
It felt like the Malcolm X movie almost.
It was like
where he's heralded as literally the Messiah, but also he went too far.
Well, yeah, again, it never justifies any of the actions of the Black Panthers, which is sort of important to do.
Yeah. And in that context, it makes it seem like the Black Panthers are aggressors and taking their politics too far and, acting like the militants that...
Well, not even explicitly justify, but
it's like
connect, these are our politics and therefore this is happening because of this.
Right.
Like, you can disagree with their politics or say like, oh, they shouldn't be in this situation or whatever. You can disagree with it, but like, it needs to give a holistic argument as to why they keep shooting at police officers.
I did want to bring up this one moment. There is this one moment where the Bill O'Neill character is like, let's go blow up
the C4, right?
Someplace.
Yeah. Which was the most
I got the C4,
hacky scheme.
Well, it was the most I'm a rat thing you could think of.
I know, yes. But
which is how they took it.
What was interesting about it, but there's this moment where Fred Hampton is like, what are you fucking talking about? If we do that, they'll bomb us, right? And I just...
They already bombed you.
Well, no, that didn't happen for a couple years.
No. Like, I feel like if you know the history here and you know what happens after this,
it's kind of like
there are little things that are...
kids, you know.
I thought wait. I thought the C4 scene, that came after he got out of jail.
Yeah.
Which is after the bombing.
I'm saying that he's talking about the police. I'm referencing Move, where the Philadelphia police did bomb, essentially, a Black Panther adjacent organization. I felt like that language was chosen specifically because there are certain things in this movie that are indicative that if you are aware of the history here, you can appreciate it, but that somebody who's not aware can easily ignore and tell their own kind of superficial
it hides its most radical elements in dog whistles. It is really the thing. And it's like, yeah, I picked up on the dog whistle, but there's still fucking dog whistles.
Any opportunity I have to tell people who seem unaware of
the Move,
what we just mentioned, the bombing of Move, I always do that because it's so recent in relative history and so close. And people are like, no, that didn't happen. And I'm like...
Which also, to this movie's credit, simply having a blockbuster accurately depict the assassination of Fred Hampton is reasonably shocking to a white audience. Like, that should be pointed out.
I think it's hard.
To the movie's credit.
It should be pointed out. They definitely make these cops seem like the
lady in the
mobsters.
Theater was horrified. She was just so angry when the cops came in.
Because that is what happened. And I remember learning about it, from friends who listened to Rage in high school. Yeah, that was probably one of the things that, partially, early radicalized me was like, oh, yeah, cops literally just assassinated this guy when he was sleeping after they drugged him. It's, kind of weird that is part of history.
Yeah. Any movie that moves the needle on the idea that cops are bad is good. That is what I will absolutely praise this movie.
Unlike Black Klansman.
I'm fucking sick of it. I'm sick of cop apologetics. I don't care about your complicated story, piece of shit.
Riley had that long essay that he wrote about
Black Klansman.
Yeah. And I feel like this movie tried to use some of his notes to make it I felt like this movie was trying to take his notes into account when making an equally large blockbuster movie that sold you on the idea that militant Black Panthers were infiltrated by cops, and here's a way to present that. It did achieve some of the notes that he gave, but it also didn't use the ideology that Boots Riley was writing about from it, so it fell flat in that respect.
Yeah.
It was interesting that Bill O'Reilly didn't have a love interest, and I think that we should do what Fred Hampton did in this movie to soy boys in the DSA when they hit on a girl at a meeting, which is to make them do push-ups. I think that should absolutely be done, and it's a travesty that the DSA hasn't incorporated. Marlo, you're more in...
Honestly, more things on the left should be modeled after...
The Black Panthers.
No, the Black Panther Party things. Because, one, there's like codified sort of... We have information about it, and it's American. I'm just saying. It's not inapplicable just because you're fucking white soy boys, guys. Do some push-ups. But yeah, so I think in general, it works as a movie. It works as an entry point for some people. There's things to be left desired as a leftist.
Yeah, if I could just touch on, connecting it back with your promising young woman, like, because I'm rereading Black Jacobins right now, and one thing CLR James does is it's absolutely, and Bunny, feel free to correct me on the pronunciation, a hagiography. What is that word?
Hagiography or hagiography.
All right,
it's
whatever.
Either one. It's you're making a sense out of this person.
Of Toussaint Louverture, who there are very legitimate criticisms to be had of him. And if you read other histories of the revolution that were written subsequently, they are more critical of Louverture. But CLR James kind of felt he deserves a George Washington treatment, and he hasn't had one. And I just feel like making a movie about Fred Hampton, you're like, oh, let's subvert the trope of movies about Fred Hampton, which doesn't exist, by making it about the guy who killed him. And it's just like, well, just make it about Fred Hampton, because we don't have...
Okay, yeah. Yeah, why can't we have one? We should have one hagiography. We should be able to have that. It's very difficult to find things to really criticize Fred Hampton about. This is why I am critical of I think the performances were great on a fucking dumb actory level. Beautiful. I love these actors. But I really wish we could have seen how young these people were. I just think to show the U.S. government conspiring to murder essentially teenagers, children, there's something to be said there of showing that, like Fred Hampton was 21 years old when he was killed. That's incredibly young. William O'Neill, younger than him, right? This is a 17-year-old that initially got fucking manipulated by the FBI, because he's a fucking dipshit kid who pretends he's a Fed to steal cars. Like,
and they threatened him.
So yeah, like they threatened him, but these, like I said, beautiful, amazing actors. I just wish we could have seen that, how young these people were. They're well, and in fact, I mean, the Black Panther Party in general is incredibly young. The figures we know in history are all in their early 20s when you initially learn about what they're doing, which because we're all fucking soy boys over here with our late adolescence and whatnot. I think also we have to put it out there. We knew who Fred Hampton was because we're interested in American Marxists and blah, blah, blah. But I think there's a huge segment of people who have never heard of this motherfucker. And this movie will be their introduction to story and history that they're unfamiliar with. And in that way, could be worse. I feel like one person will become a communist from this. So
yeah, maybe.
Plenty will avoid that.
It'll be like
entirely.
Searching for Bobby
It allows
Fischer
for
with
that.
me. I'll end up reading all of Fred Hampton's books and starting my own chapter of the Black Panther Party at the age of 15.
I do love the Black Panthers.
Last leftist party in America. Right? No? Is any Marlo?
I always think of the Japanese Black Panthers. or there's a tradition there where in my life I met a whole community of Japanese Rastafarians who also had this like connection to Japanese Black Panthers. It's very interesting little side history there. But that's why I was disappointed in this movie that they did sort of montage the Rainbow Coalition aspects, because too much focus on them white boys, one.
Unearned.
And I wanted to hear more about the impetus, the philosophy, the reasoning of him doing this, instead of it just being this almost cutesy fucking, let's get them all together. But I do think it's cool that there's going to be at least a handful of people who will see this movie, think this movie is cool, and be like, wait, what's all this about?
I think Fred Hampton is the next Obama, is what I'm saying. He brings people together.
Well, I do want to point out Fred Hampton Jr. is alive. He is raising money currently. I'm going to put the link in the show notes for Hampton House. That is a thing that exists, and they are literally just like, I think, less than $10,000 away of their goal. He and his mother, who was featured in the movie, basically do this like pure kids program around the Black Panther. It's called like the Black Panther Cubs. Like I said, I'll have a link in the notes because they did mention him in the credits of the movie. And I say, you got a couple bucks, throw them their way. Why not?
Yeah,
I don't know, guys.
That's all right. Watch it or don't.
I say watch it. Can't hurt. Also, you know what, guys? Brandy as Cinderella. It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead, watch that as well. For me, the only Cinderella.
Yeah.
I say.
Watch that. Watch it, the rest of the adaptations of Cinderella that exist. Compare them. See what your favorite is.
I say Brandy.
Our next 63 episodes will be going through every adaptation of Cinderella ever done in media and comparing them.
Starting with, I almost did get a Fable and Folklore citation in my
curated
degree,
by Bonnie.
So I could go real deep. I'll do it on the Patreon. I don't know, guys. Is this all we're doing this week?
I think we talked about other stuff. I don't remember. Yeah.
I mean, Donnie T's innocent, so we're all on track.
God, I wish you. I really do wish you was posting right now.
Yeah.
I really do wish you was. That would be so fun. They should have just let him back for the day. Just given it to him for like 24 hours. Say the N word. We don't care. Just have it.
I did appreciate that exactly what I predicted would happen happened, which is nothing.
Nothing at all.
Waiting more and more weeks for your money, guys. For all of our money. It's very funny that the Democrats voted to take a week recess.
And
no rush, guys.
No rush. I mean, why would you need it? Like, they're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because what we cared about is this impeachment.
I was invested.
The only thing keeping me from becoming the Joker day to day is, I guess, marijuana.
No, mine's my general love of humanity and optimism about life.
That's what I want the folks that listen to come away with, is that Marlo's the one who loves humanity.
I'm the optimistic one.
No, honestly, what's keeping me from becoming the Joker is that I am watching the Harley Quinn animated series, and the Joker is a bad guy on that. Yeah. But also, oh God, I feel like they're going to give me, which is my favorite thing, which is bisexual Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn romance. I feel like it's going there. It's one of my favorite things in life. Which, it's one of a number of things over this year of quarantine that is like, wait, how bisexual am I? It's a fun thing.
You're Harley Quinn, Poison Ivy, bisexual. I
am for sure that, Venn diagram of bisexual. I'm for sure like a Harley Quinn bisexual in that I too had a piece of X who occupied a good deal of my young life. And now I'm like, I don't know.
Maybe murder is cool.
Guys, it's so good. It's a really good cartoon. This is the thing. DC only makes good animated properties. The animated Wonder Woman movies are also really good.
What the fuck
the
did
Killing
I
Joke animated. It's just
I don't think it was Killing Joke. Could have been Killing Joke. I don't fucking remember. I watched it.
Well, did Barbara Gordon get shot and paralyzed?
I think they killed Dick Grayson.
Well, then it wasn't Killing Joke.
Yeah.
Death in the Family. It's also good. It's also good. I am a fucking dork. And, but the animated ones are really good. And this particular one is really good on HBO Max. It's for grown-ups. They say fuck. There's also a storyline where one of the bad guys calls Wonder Woman.
Yeah, no, I remember like turning it on.
And everyone gets mad at him. It's so funny. It's literally, this is like what I would write for
I do
myself
remember,
to watch.
like they played it like super late night on HBO once, and I like had turned it on, and I remember thinking it was like kind of Archer with Batman characters.
Yeah, it's really good, really fun. Honestly, it's my whole personality for the last 48 hours. So,
I gotta go pack the kraut, as they say. No, I need to put salted cabbage in jars so it ferments into sauerkraut. Is what I'm doing. Yeah.
It's good for your belly.
Last the winter.
All right. Happy V-Day, everyone. So that's right. Watch Some Like It Hot. Watch Judas and the Black Messiah. And Charlie
watch
Quinn.
About a Boy. I find that movie delightful. Yeah.
It is
Watch
delightful.
Ghost.
Bye.
Fair.
Bye.
You ain't gonna do no revolutionary act. Forget about me. I don't want myself on your mind if you're not gonna work for the people. And you see, I don't want to make that to me because of the reason that I'm too young to die. I want to live a little bit longer. What you did already.
To the future, sincerely yours. To the heavens from these wooden floors. Many flows from this era pause. Even overhead pterosaurs, I am here today and forevermore. Accompany God's quiet when the streets on fire. All I require is open ears to get us so higher. Retired from modern slavery after getting hired. The bravery of our heroes shedding light on the liars. The biggest jokes getting rich prior to being pulled over when in the skin of minority. We already targets designated by authority. Don't miss them commander-in-chiefs, King Phil Dorothy. Far from a home static, let the game change tragic. Do you believe in silver bullets or one that's magic? Or you believe it was given what they diagnosed magic? This the sermon spread the word, Lavelle has it in the baggage. When it all falls, forcing us all to live life savagely. Had to be start of the revolution.
You have to understand that people have to pay the price for peace. If you dare to struggle, you dare to win. If you dare not to struggle, then goddamn it, you don't deserve to win. Let me say peace to you if you're willing to fight for it.
When it all falls, forcing us all to live life savagely. Had to be started. Infatuated with black suited niggas looking to holler. And what it really is on the back of the US dollar. I'm racing all the y'all in the driver's seat of a Charger, trying to dodge deception, flooding in on me, trying to be smarter. Copy diploma, get a BS for all of the BS. So BA, master of passing them up on relay. So doctorate with something in the air. I'm coughing up the truth, but coffins our presence of blue and red will stop decaying. Know the blue and red stretching for generations on replay. Prime suspects race to perform a gut check. The crack was on performance enhancements, enhanced the devil. Ronald Reagan leaving trails of the white like Hansel and Gretel. Jet as fast as you can like you trying to win the medal. Try your luck with 7 chasing that racism ran cops. Building 7 sold to Una in search of a shamrock. But before they finished and their hands stopped, what they needed was a revolution.
Let me say it in the spirit of liberation. I've been gone for a little while.
Before they finished
My body's been gone. You gotta see that. My body's been gone for a little while. But I'm back now. I believe that I'm back to stay.
Before they finished and their hands stopped, what they needed. said they cancers, black stands and spot gold. Played answers, Black Panthers, shot cold. These hands for labor gon' manage, fortune won't make it. Tell Uncle Sanders is the Joe Louis reincarnated. Stroke of a pen, the media said our image was sealed. Andrew, the best Carnegie, all we know is to steal. All we know is to kill, and they'll blackmail these black males. Ain't nothing when you back and frail and you back in jail. And now Detroit got lions, tigers, and fear. In Chicago, synonymous with Iraq comparisons. Rear the bystander sick to his stomach, his mother buried in tears, and the daughter posted on corners, ain't seen her family in years. Once you discover truth and find the means to share the mission, it's multiple that's behind the camera carving up division. And if a nigga finish before they figure solution, figure setting fire to this institution, spark a fucking revolution.
I believe that I'm going to be able to die what I was into, the things that I was born for. I believe that I'm going to be able to die high off the people. I believe that I will be able to die as a revolutionary in the international revolutionary protest struggle. And I hope that each one of you will be able to die in the international protest revolutionary struggle in the people living. And I think that struggle is going to come. Why don't you live for the people? Why don't you struggle for the people? Why don't you die for the people?